Satoru Gojo is back, but his return is way crazier and way creepier than we could have imagined. This is one of the most insane twists in JJK. This changes everything, so let's get into it. Real quick guys, do me a huge favor and leave a like and comment on this video right now for that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you enjoy my videos but you haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, don't forget that subscribing on YouTube is completely free and it helps out the channel. In the last chapter, Yuji and Todo teamed up to Vibra Slap Sukuna after Choso's tragic death. The Vibra Slap device, or Vibra Slap, I don't know what it is, but anyway, it allowed Todo to keep using Boogie Woogie constantly, as well as to keep switching the timing of when the switching of places would take place. Man, that was a weird sentence. This made it impossible for Sukuna to adapt to the technique, and so Yuji and Todo were able to give Sukuna a run for his money, and Yuji was even able to deliver another Black Flash punch right to Sukuna's chest. Yuji then straight up tried to crush Sukuna's heart. The King of Curses really appeared to be in trouble, and so he decided to initiate yet another domain expansion. But just as he was about to do it, he saw a ghost of immense strength emerging out of the smoke that had risen from the battlefield. This ghost was apparently someone whom Sukuna had buried with his own hands, and the final panel of the chapter gave us the partial view of a face that looked extremely similar to Satoru Gojo. This single panel sent the fandom into an absolute frenzy as everyone began speculating that this was it. This was the moment that Gojo returns from the dead in order to defeat Sukuna once and for all. This was easily the biggest cliffhanger in the history of JJK, because as you will recall, Gojo's death was not actually a cliffhanger. At the end of the chapter, right before his death, Gojo was fine and it looked like he was about to win. Then, in the very next chapter, we suddenly see Gojo talking to his old friends in the afterlife, and after that, we see that his lifeless body has somehow been cut in half by Sukuna. And so, it wasn't a cliffhanger, it was just a shocking twist, because Gojo's death actually happened off-screen. But this latest cliffhanger occurred in the last panel of the chapter, and it caused absolute chaos in the fandom. Some said that Gojo had indeed returned from the dead. Others said that it wasn't really Gojo, but just someone who looked like Gojo from that angle. And others still said Sukuna was hallucinating because in reality, Yuji managed to rip out his heart, so Sukuna was actually dying, and his so-called encounter with Gojo was really about to occur, but in the afterlife. However, the real truth about Gojo's return is way crazier and way more effed up than most of the fandom could have possibly imagined. So let's talk about that right now, because ℂ𝕂 truly is an absolute madman. The new chapter starts off in the very moment that Yuji is delivering that punch to Sukuna and trying to crush his heart. For a brief instant, it appears as if Todo and Yuji have conquered Sukuna. It looks like it might be over. Sukuna knows that he is in danger, and he tries to open another domain expansion, but that's the moment that he sees a familiar figure emerging from the smoke on the battlefield. This chapter confirms that this figure was in fact Satoru Gojo. But the first panel that showcases Gojo's full face also includes another very important detail. Gojo now has a large scar across his forehead that is identical to the scar that Kenjaku leaves when he possesses someone's body. In that moment, everyone reading the chapter is absolutely freaking out. We all thought that Kenjaku was dead, but now it seems Kenjaku somehow survived, and not only did he survive, but he managed to possess the body of the strongest modern sorcerer. The man who possessed both Limitless and the Six Eyes, the honored one, Satoru Gojo. Now, if you've been following my JJK videos, then you know that I've been considering the possibility that Kenjaku was planning to take over Gojo's body for years. And just as we're thinking that, wow, Kenjaku pulled it off, we can't seem to get rid of this guy, Sukuna reveals that it's not as it seems. Sukuna laughs, and he is clearly impressed by what he's seeing. However, when he addresses the figure of Gojo, he doesn't call him Gojo or Kenjaku. He says, "I didn't think you were someone who would go this far, Okotsu Yuta." That's right. Gojo has returned, at least his body came back to life, but it's not Gojo behind the wheel. The one who is now controlling Gojo's body is actually Yuta, who did in fact survive his own battle with Sukuna, even though there was some speculation about whether he survived or died as a result of his injuries. Speaking of speculation regarding what really happened to Yuta, we then get a quick flashback that explains everything. No, this didn't happen completely out of nowhere, and yes, there is a method to ℂ𝕂's madness. Back during the 1-month time skip when the sorcerers were still preparing for the big battle, they came up with a sort of desperate plan of last resort. If Sukuna manages to defeat everyone, and if he kills Gojo during the battle, Rika will eat Kenjaku and copy his body switching technique. This will then allow Yuta to fight using Gojo's body, which would greatly increase their chances of winning because it would allow one overpowered sorcerer, Yuta, to use the body of an even more overpowered sorcerer, Gojo, and Gojo also happens to possess the legendary inherited technique known as ℂ𝕂𝔻𝔻. Now the Six Eyes itself might be different because it is not a technique but a physical trait. As such, Rika and Yuta cannot copy it, but they may still be able to activate it when Yuta actually enters Gojo's body and begins controlling it from the inside. It's also important to note that copy techniques can only be used during the 5 minutes that Rika is fully manifested. Once those 5 minutes run out, Yuta can no longer use the copy technique, but because the technique he is copying will leave him permanently attached to Gojo's body, and he won't be able to just go back 5 minutes later, Yuta could face some serious consequences as a result of this strategy. But no one is sure what exactly those consequences will be. There are several different scenarios that could happen, including that Yuta will simply die, that he won't die right away, but that he will die eventually, or that he will be able to survive and continue using Gojo's body even after the 5 minutes. This might mean that he will be stuck inside of Gojo's body forever, but at least he will still be alive. Now, not everyone is on board with this crazy zombie Gojo plan, and they all agree that this should be a desperate final option of last resort. Maki and some of Yuta's other friends are particularly skeptical about the plan because they are worried about what could happen to Yuta. But Yuta insists that it must be done. Yuta knows that his friends are afraid that transferring his body into Gojo's might turn him into some kind of monster. But Yuta believes that if Gojo dies and there is no other path forward, then he has to become a monster willingly for the sake of humanity. When Yuta told Gojo about this plan, Gojo wasn't super enthusiastic about it, but he also wasn't against it. Gojo never thought that he would actually lose, so he didn't think that this plan would ever be needed. But at the end of the day, he didn't care about what happened to his body after his death, so if he really ended up getting killed, Yuta could take his body. Yuta then asked Gojo about his ancestors, because in the past Gojo had told Yuta that the two of them share a common ancestor, Sugawara no Michizane. Not only that, but Yuta may also have Fujiwara ancestors as well, which means that his bloodline is even more stacked and even more blessed than Gojo's. Yuta may have the blood of both Sugawara and Fujiwara running through his veins, which means that he has the potential to unlock many overpowered curse techniques of both family bloodlines. This also means that since Yuta and Gojo have a common ancestor, and therefore common blood, Yuta may end up being more compatible with Gojo's body than he even realizes. And if his body is extremely compatible with Gojo's, then who knows, maybe Yuta really will be able to activate both ℂ𝕂𝔻𝔻 and the Six Eyes while he is possessing Gojo's body. At the end of their flashback conversation, Gojo warns Yuta that even though he is even more blessed than Gojo, he cannot do things half-assed. He has to work hard on getting stronger, on mastering his cursed energy, and on becoming a warrior strong enough to challenge even the mighty Sukuna himself. Gojo then kind of excuses himself while he goes and casually eliminates the Jujutsu higher-ups, confirming that he was indeed the one who did it. We then learn how exactly the plan to transfer Yuta into Gojo's body was executed by Shoko and the others. We see that Shoko is not alone and that she assembled a little medical team to take care of the injured during the battle against Sukuna. This team includes ℂ𝕂𝔻𝔻, who is able to inject more sugar into other people, which actually helps replenish the brain when using curse techniques, and Nita is also part of the support team. We then jump ahead to the moment that a severely injured Yuta was brought to Shoko by ℂ𝕂𝔻𝕗 after Sukuna practically cut him in two like he did with Gojo. Based on what we saw before this, I wasn't sure how bad the injury really was, but this chapter confirms that yeah, it was fatal and just as bad as Gojo's. Shoko's medical team couldn't heal Yuta even if they wanted to, and Yuta's RCT couldn't do it either. So in the end, that last resort plan to have Yuta take over Gojo's body ended up being a necessity. Yuta was literally going to die, and transferring him into Gojo was the only way to save his life. That's because Shoko had already stitched up and repaired Gojo's body beforehand, and this made it easier for Yuta to use his RCT with ℂ𝕂𝔻𝕻's support to instantly repair Gojo's body as soon as he enters it. This is what allowed him to actually survive inside of Gojo, whereas he would have straight up died if he remained inside his own body. Back in the present, Sukuna and Yuta / Gojo both initiate their domain expansions at the same time. And the domain that Yuta is using is not his own, it is Gojo's infinite void. As the narrator tells us, Gojo had already devised a barrier technique solution against Sukuna's domain without a closed barrier. So the very best way to fight against Sukuna's malevolent shrine right now is with Gojo's infinite void. And there we have it, Gojo and Sukuna back at it again, only this time it's Yuta inside of Gojo's body. But the stakes are still as high as ever, their domains are still as epic as ever, and this fight is about to go absolutely off the charts yet again. What did you guys think about this insane Yuta Gojo twist? I know some people really didn't like it because they want the real Gojo back, and believe me, as a professional full-time Gojo coper, I want the real Gojo back too. But this also makes sense from everything we've seen in Jujutsu Kaisen so far, and I also think that it makes perfect sense for the sorcerers to try to use Gojo's body in the fight against Sukuna. Did you like the twist or did you hate it? Let me know down in the comments. Also, will Yuta be able to awaken the Six Eyes because of his bloodline connection to Gojo through Sugawara? Will he be able to access additional powers due to his potential connection to the powerful Fujiwara bloodline as well? Is Yuta now going to be stuck in Gojo's body forever, even if he does defeat Sukuna? And do you think that Gojo's real personality could awaken yet again? Or is he just dead and gone for good? Finally, how will Yuji remain relevant in this fight? Will it now just be a Sukuna versus Pseudo Gojo showdown? Or will Yuji be the one to land the decisive blow against Sukuna? Don't forget to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help me out with that YouTube algorithm. And if you're looking for another epic video to watch, check out the video on screen. Click it right now.